Long before the final night, Babylon stood as the greatest city on earth. Massive walls surrounded its heart, and its people believed no army could ever bring it down. Generations earlier, King Nebuchadnezzar had transformed Babylon into the center of a mighty empire. Its wealth, power, and glory became legendary across the ancient world. Yet beyond Babylon's towering walls, a new force was rising. Cyrus the Great united the Medes and Persians, steadily conquering kingdoms that once feared Babylon. Inside the city, confidence remained unshaken. The people trusted their walls, their gates, and the Euphrates River flowing beneath them to keep every enemy away. While King Nabonidus stayed away from the capital, his son Belshazzar ruled Babylon. He inherited unimaginable riches and believed his kingdom would never fall. As Persian forces tightened their grip around the land, preparations for a magnificent royal feast filled the palace. Servants rushed to create a night of celebration. Golden decorations sparkled beneath torchlight. Tables overflowed with food and wine as nobles, officials, and military leaders gathered for the grand banquet. Outside, soldiers stood watch upon Babylon's walls. Beyond the darkness, the Persian army waited, but inside the palace, no one showed the slightest fear.
Tonight, we celebrate the greatness of Babylon. No enemy can touch us!
The hall erupted with cheers. Music echoed through the palace while guests laughed, convinced Babylon's mighty defenses guaranteed another peaceful night. As the feast continued, Belshazzar demanded something extraordinary. He ordered servants to bring the sacred gold and silver vessels taken long ago from the temple in Jerusalem. The treasured vessels were placed before the king. Once used in worship, they were now treated as trophies before the royal guests.
Fill them with wine! Tonight, everything belongs to Babylon!
The nobles, wives, and honored guests drank from the holy vessels while praising idols made of gold, silver, bronze, wood, iron, and stone. The celebration reached its loudest moment. Songs filled the hall as no one imagined that history itself was about to interrupt the feast. Without warning, a mysterious hand appeared beside the palace lampstand. Silent fingers began writing strange words across the plaster wall. The music stopped instantly. Conversations vanished. Every eye locked onto the glowing message as fear replaced celebration. Belshazzar stared at the writing. His face turned pale, and his knees trembled beneath him as he realized something beyond human understanding had entered the hall.
Bring every wise man in Babylon! Whoever reads these words will receive great honor and become the third ruler of the kingdom!
The kingdom's wisest scholars gathered before the wall. One by one, they examined the mysterious inscription, but none could read it, and silence filled the palace once again. Fear spread across the banquet hall. The king's advisors lowered their heads, unable to explain the mysterious message written upon the palace wall. As confusion grew, news of the king's distress reached the queen. Calmly, she entered the silent banquet hall where celebration had turned into fear.
Your Majesty, there is a man in this kingdom with extraordinary wisdom. During Nebuchadnezzar's reign, he solved mysteries no one else could.
His name is Daniel. Send for him, and he will reveal the meaning of the writing.
Messengers hurried through Babylon's streets. Soon, the elderly prophet Daniel entered the royal palace, walking calmly into a room filled with anxious faces.
If you can read these words, I will clothe you in purple, place a gold chain around your neck, and make you the third ruler of Babylon.
Keep your rewards or give them to another. I will still tell you what the writing means.
The hall fell completely silent as Daniel reminded Belshazzar of King Nebuchadnezzar. whose pride had once been humbled by the Most High God. Daniel,
Your father was given greatness, but when pride filled his heart, God humbled him until he acknowledged who truly rules over kingdoms.
You knew all these things, yet you refused to humble yourself before the Lord of heaven.
Instead, you brought the sacred vessels from God's temple and used them for your feast while praising lifeless idols.
no one dared interrupt as Daniel spoke with quiet authority before the king and his court. Daniel turned toward the glowing inscription. Every eye followed him as he prepared to reveal the meaning hidden within the mysterious words. Daniel.
These are the words written upon the wall: Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin.
The king waited, knowing the interpretation would decide the fate of his kingdom.
Tekel means you have been weighed on the scales and found lacking.
Belshazzar's expression hardened with fear as Daniel continued speaking. Every noble listened without daring to move. The king who ruled the world's greatest city stood speechless before a judgment no earthly power could overturn. Daniel.
Perez means your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians.
The weight of Daniel's words settled over the hall. No one spoke. The celebration had become a courtroom where the verdict had already been delivered. Belshazzar remained silent for a long moment. Though terrified by the message, he chose to keep the promise he had made before the entire court. Belshazzar.
Bring the royal robes. Let Daniel receive the honor I promised.
Servants carefully dressed Daniel in a purple robe. A heavy chain of gold was placed around his neck as the nobles watched in silence. A royal herald stepped forward. Herald.
By command of King Belshazzar, Daniel is declared the third ruler in the kingdom of Babylon.
The announcement echoed through the palace, yet no one celebrated. The honors seemed empty beneath the shadow of the judgment written on the wall. Beyond Babylon's walls, another story was unfolding. The Persian army continued its quiet operation beneath the cover of darkness. For weeks, Cyrus's engineers had worked upstream, diverting much of the Euphrates River into canals built for a single purpose. As the water level slowly dropped, the riverbed beneath Babylon's mighty walls became shallow enough for soldiers to cross unnoticed. Persian commanders quietly gathered their troops.
Stay silent. Tonight we enter the city through the river.
Disciplined ranks advanced through the exposed river channel. Every step carried them closer to the heart of the empire that believed itself untouchable. Inside Babylon, the feast had ended. Most citizens remained unaware that enemy soldiers were already moving beneath their city's defenses. The bronze gates near the river were left vulnerable. Persian soldiers slipped through the openings with remarkable speed and little resistance. Street after street quietly fell under Persian control. Guards who expected another peaceful night were caught completely by surprise. A Babylonian guard spotted movement in the darkness. Guard.
Soldiers! There are soldiers inside the city!
The alarm spread through nearby streets. Confused voices echoed as officers rushed to understand how the enemy had crossed the city's impossible defenses.
Close every gate! Defend the palace! Move quickly!
But the decisive moment had already passed. Babylon was no longer defending itself. It was desperately reacting to an invasion already underway. Persian soldiers secured bridges, gates, and government buildings with remarkable discipline, preventing the city from organizing an effective defense. Inside the royal palace, Daniel's prophecy was unfolding exactly as spoken. The kingdom had been numbered, weighed, and was now being taken away. word of the invasion raced through the palace. Celebration disappeared completely as frightened servants and guards rushed through the corridors. A breathless messenger burst into the royal hall. Messenger.
Your Majesty! Persian soldiers have entered the city!
Belshazzar froze. Only moments earlier he had heard Daniel's interpretation. Now every word was becoming reality before his eyes. Belshazzar.
Impossible! Babylon's walls cannot be breached! How did they get inside? The enemy came through the river, my king. They are advancing toward the palace.
Panic spread among the nobles. The confidence that had filled the banquet only an hour before vanished into fear and confusion. Some guests fled through palace corridors while others searched desperately for weapons, hoping to stop an enemy already inside the city. Daniel remained calm amid the chaos. He quietly watched as the judgment spoken by God unfolded exactly as it had been revealed. Outside, Persian soldiers moved with remarkable discipline, securing every strategic path leading toward Babylon's royal palace. Persian commander.
Do not stop! Secure the palace. The kingdom falls before sunrise.
The palace guards gathered at the entrance, preparing for a final defense. Their determination could not overcome the speed of the advancing army. Steel clashed against steel as the first battle erupted near the palace gates. Babylon's last defenders fought with desperate courage. The sounds of battle echoed through halls that had recently been filled with music, laughter, and the celebration of royal pride.
Protect the king! Hold the entrance!
Persian warriors pressed forward with relentless discipline, breaking through the remaining resistance surrounding the royal chambers. Belshazzar looked around the crumbling palace. The wealth and glory of Babylon could no longer protect its ruler from judgment. The king remembered the glowing words upon the wall. Every sentence Daniel had spoken now echoed through his troubled mind. Before dawn, Babylon's final king met his end. The empire that had ruled the ancient world collapsed within a single night. The royal feast ended not with celebration, but with silence. Babylon's throne passed into the hands of a new empire. As the first light of dawn touched the city, Persian banners rose above Babylon, marking the end of one kingdom and the beginning of another. As daylight spread across Babylon, the streets grew quiet. The city that once ruled nations had fallen in a single unforgettable night. Citizens cautiously stepped from their homes, discovering Persian soldiers standing guard where Babylonian troops had stood only hours before. Whispers filled the marketplaces. The mighty walls still stood untouched, yet they had failed to save the empire that trusted more in stone than in wisdom. The royal palace, once filled with music and laughter, now stood silent under the authority of new rulers from Persia. The mysterious writing had disappeared, but its message remained unforgettable. Every word had been fulfilled before the night was over. Daniel quietly left the palace, witnessing the end of an empire exactly as God had revealed only hours before. The treasures of Babylon remained, but the kingdom itself belonged to another. Wealth could not preserve a nation whose time had ended. The rise of the Medo-Persian Empire marked a turning point in history, reshaping the ancient world without a prolonged siege. Narrator, history remembers that kingdoms rise through power, but they endure only for a season. Babylon's greatest mistake was not weak walls. It was believing that earthly strength alone could secure its future forever. Belshazzar ignored the lessons learned by Nebuchadnezzar, choosing pride when humility could have changed the course of his final night. Daniel's courage stood in sharp contrast to the fear surrounding him. He delivered the truth without seeking reward or favor. Daniel, truth does not change because kings refuse to hear it. The sacred vessels taken from Jerusalem had witnessed both Babylon's pride and its sudden downfall within the same remarkable evening. The feast that celebrated human greatness became the very setting where divine judgment was revealed before an entire kingdom. The words Mene, Tekel, Parsin continued to echo through history, reminding generations that every kingdom is accountable. Empires may appear unshakable, yet history repeatedly proves that no throne stands forever against the passage of time. The fall of Babylon became more than a military victory. It became a lasting lesson about pride, responsibility, and the limits of earthly power. Narrator, the greatest walls can protect a city, but they cannot protect a kingdom from the consequences of its choices. As the sun rose over Babylon, its towering walls still cast long shadows. Yet the empire they once protected had already become part of history. The palace stood silent. The music had faded, the feast had ended, and the throne of Babylon now belonged to another ruler. Citizens looked upon their city in disbelief. Overnight, the world's greatest kingdom had passed into the hands of the Medes and Persians. Daniel quietly reflected on the night's events. Every word written upon the wall had come to pass exactly as it had been revealed. Narrator, Babylon's fall reminds every generation that power, wealth, and human pride can never guarantee lasting security. The story endured through the centuries, not because of Babylon's greatness alone, but because of the warning written on its final night. Narrator, when leaders ignore wisdom and place their confidence above truth, even the strongest kingdoms can disappear in a single moment. The night Babylon fell became one of history's most unforgettable lessons, a reminder that every kingdom has its appointed time, and every ruler is ultimately accountable.